So, Crossover Thursday here, presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons, Julian Council of Locked On Panthers here to talk about this Week 18 matchup and sort of what each team needs to do in order to come away with the win, also known as keys to victory. And Julian, what are three things that you think the Panthers need to do in order to finish this season strong with a win?
Yeah, as I've said every week on these things, Carolina needs to do more than three things in order to win these games based off of how things have gone in the past. But I think they've played a lot better post-bye. They got the win against New Orleans at home. They got the win against the Giants in Munich, of course, and then came back after the bye and played some teams tough. But the last couple of weeks, they've been up and down. They get blown out by Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys, and then they come back to beat an Arizona team. And then last week, well, what happened in Tampa is what happened. So my hope is that this team can show some resolve and really continue to build off the momentum that they had built kind of in the last month and a half and had that into 2025, getting their fifth win. But in order to do that, they're not going to stop the run. They're probably going to give up their sixth straight 200-yard rushing game in a row, and that's going to be another notch to why Jero Rivera should not be back in Carolina next year. Now you look at who's playing. You don't have Shaq Thompson. You may not have Josie Jewell. You don't have Trevon Wallace, your rookie linebacker who filled in for Shaq. You don't have Derek Brown. Maybe you won't be able to stop the run because of that, and it's not necessarily the coordinator's fault. As Dave Canales continuously said, the scheme's not the problem. It's the players. Now, he didn't say the players part, but we all know the players part. But they got to try and make Atlanta at least work for it. If they can allow only like 4.8, 4.9 rushes per attempt, then that can help them in this game. I look offensively, like Thielen's been really good lately, but someone else outside of Adam Thielen's got to do something. Jalen Coker has been the receiver most likely to make some plays, was not super involved last week. Xavier Legette was targeted 9 times, only came up with 5 receptions and couldn't make some of those big plays. And you would like to see him make some plays on Sunday to feel good about him heading into the offseason, that for the first round pick from the year ago or from this season. And then also JT Sanders as well, who's not been that involved in the offense. So seeing some of these younger guys outside of Thielen making some plays and being involved, like that's, I think, a big key for Carolina, as I would imagine Atlanta's going to key on Adam Thielen as that main threat. And then, you got to take care of the football. Win the turnover battle in this game. I do think that would be key because you got a rookie over there, and Michael Penix Jr. has turned it over in both his starts so far this season. So it's likely he can give you one on Sunday. So if you get that turnover, you got to hold on to the football as well and capitalize, play complementary football, something that is really eluded Carolina over the 6-year period where they are not going to make the playoffs yet again.
Yeah, you talk about someone else stepping up instead of Adam Thielen. I'm like, I don't know if you need somebody else based off of how D. Alford, the Falcons nickel cornerback, has played very up and down these last couple of weeks. So, if he has another down game, then you just might, get 150 yards from Adam Thielen going up against D. Alford. So we'll see on that front. But I think you're right. The turnover battle is so key. It's a cliche for a reason, right? You just look it up and, you look in Carolina's wins this year, they're +4 in turnover margin, and their losses, they're -10. In Atlanta's wins, they're +9 in turnover margin, and their losses, they're -14. And so it's pretty simple. When you give the opposing team opportunities to score more points by turning the football over, they're going to tend to score more points, and that's going to lead to you losing the football game. So that is also a key to victory for this Falcon team. I think the other one is just run the damn ball, as they say. You don't need to be cute about this, right? Last week, a big part of why the team was so successful in the first half, going up 17-7 against Washington, was because they ran the ball down Washington's throat. And then in the second half, they tried to get a little cute. They started to try to get Michael Penix into a rhythm, and they kind of abandoned the run game. And then next thing you know, their offense sort of stagnated. And, Washington sort of have taken the lead, and then they were forced to have to throw the football at that point in time. And so, just stick with the run. That's, as you said, everybody's been able to run against the Carolina Panther team. You don't necessarily have to get cute against that. And then the third key for me is just finish the season strong, right? Whatever that takes, the shape of it. Get the bad taste out of last week's loss out of your mouth. Don't show any quit or anything like that. Don't let Washington beat you twice. You have a chance to finish 5-1 in the division for the first time in 8 years. You have a chance for a winning record for the first time in 7 seasons. So it's one of those things where you still have something to play for, even if the fans are sort of all out and checked out of the season because of the playoffs. But for this football team, get something positive going at the end of the season so that at least you can carry that over into the offseason and say, okay, we did some good things at the end of the season that we can build off of going into 2025.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up the fan standpoint. Is it going to be a ghost town in there on Sunday? Like, is there anybody showing up?
Probably not. Yeah, it is what it is. It is what
I mean, that's tough. You always hate that. Like, you want these games to matter. And my hope was that Carolina was going to beat Tampa last week, make Tampa feel like they're not going to make the playoffs, Atlanta lose, and then this game be a game that actually mattered. It still matters, obviously, but we already recognized and acknowledged on this show earlier. New Orleans ain't gonna go out here and do Atlanta a favor and beat Tampa, and they're also not capable of beating Tampa Bay as currently constructed this week. Crazier things have happened, but I don't see it happening. It sucks for the Falcons, obviously. I mean, no one in Carolina is weeping over the Atlanta Falcons corpse as they're not going to make the playoffs yet again this season. But I am very curious to see off-season wise, like what they do. If Jerry Rivera does leave Carolina, which I do think will happen, I just don't think you can coordinate two of the worst scoring defenses and then return, especially if they give up 38 points to the Falcons on Sunday and they set the record. I just don't think that's going to be, I don't know necessarily where it's tenable. Like Davis stood by him, but I don't know if he'd come back. Maybe he goes down to Atlanta. I do think he's a good DC. And you look at his year in Denver, it was a top 10 defense by a lot of metrics. And look at Denver's defensive talent compared to what Carolina's had since he's been here. And also just the injury luck that Denver's had compared to what Carolina's had the last couple of years. And he may be a nice fit for Atlanta, especially with that Raheem Morris relationship dating back to their time in Atlanta under Sean McVay, or in LA rather, under Sean McVay. So I'm very curious to see how the Falcons offseason goes. They made me look foolish. I picked this team to win the division. That's the last time I ever do that. So thank you, Atlanta. I'm wrong about plenty of things. So it's not like I'm ever going to stop. But I want to see what happens. And it could be moving forward, Bryce and Michael Penix, two guys who could be vying to be the class of the NFC moving forward, NFC South at least, moving forward as far as that quarterback battle. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to in the future, provided that, Raheem Morris gets things figured out in Atlanta long term. And, of course, Dave Canales turns things around here in Carolina.
Yeah, you're not the only one that picked the Falcons to win the division. Before the season. So, you knew it was going to be Tampa Bay or Atlanta. It was going to come down to the wire.
Right.
The expectation was the week 18 game was going to be a win in your in type of situation. And we just fell, 1 week shy of that. So it's not surprising how this thing went. It's just unfortunate, if you're a Falcon fan, and very fortunate if you're a fan of any of these other three NFC South teams, that it went the way that it did. Because, I know the rest of this division does enjoy the Falcons continually struggling to roll that ball up a hill and constantly getting crushed underfoot by it when it rolls back down.
But Saints fans can't say anything there. Like, they don't have any hope. Like, what hope do they have right now? Because at least Carolina, like, since Bryce has come back and played well, and like the way they played against Tampa the first time, the way they played against KC and against Philly, like, there's actually some level of hope. Michael Penix so far has shown you enough, and like, this is a better Falcons team. Clearly, the cap situation is not what it was when Terry Fontenot first got there. I think Raheem Morris second time around will be certainly better than the first time around. Obviously, in Tampa, like, okay, they're good, like, they're a good team. But New Orleans, what are they gonna do? So they can't be laughing at anybody, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, my worry with New Orleans is that they actually get smart and they decide, like, hey, we need to kind of do a mini teardown. They can't do a full teardown just because they've hamstrung themselves cap wise, but like, they need to be positioning themselves for that 2026 quarterback class and potentially getting a certain Arch Manning who has local ties to that organization as a grandson of a Saints legend. But I'm hoping that's, if I'm a Saints fan, that's the thing that gives me hope for the future. But because the Saints refuse to do stuff like that, that's also why you're talking about, like, there's no hope for them.
I have I have an Arch Manning take that's, I guess, kind of related to what we're talking about. It is. I don't think the Mannings are going to let him leave. Because think about it. They won't let him take NIL money until he's a starter at Texas. They never let him do any like social media stuff. When he announced he's going to Texas, he just tweeted it out. They're different. And it's not like Arch needs the money. They don't need the money. And we're seeing quarterbacks that started a lot, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, having a lot more success than guys who didn't start that many years. I mean, Caleb, 2 years. I mean, Drake, 2 years. Like, I think that's a lot more than just the 1 year like we've seen in the past. Some guys, like, that's something that matters. And Drew Brees has talked about that. Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. You want to get to that certain amount of starts. Well, Arch Manning only starting what would end up being, I guess, depending on how Texas next year, maybe 16 games in his career before coming to the NFL. Do you think that's enough? Do you think the Mannings will want to do that? I'm just putting that out there. They're different than everybody else that's out here chasing, trying to get to the NFL. And we just saw Drew Aller, who probably could be QB3 and decide to go back to Penn State. Now he could change his mind. I think it's too late, actually, because they had to go ahead and put his name in. But we'll see. I that's one thing I'm thinking that maybe New Orleans going to have to wait until 2027 or maybe even 28 before they could even get after Arch Manning.
Okay, well, that sounds good to me. The longer,
yeah, I mean, it's good for everybody.
keep the quarterbacks away from the New Orleans Saints. So that's as long as that goes. Like as long as they continue to have to, ride the Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, train. Like I'm all in favor of that.